Hey guys, it's Adam for Lucipixel and welcome back. Now, something I've discussed at length on my channel more than once is this big, scary online world. Social media, making a name for yourself, gaining popularity, etc., etc. And all of the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along with it, both professionally and psychologically. For most of us, we want to learn more about, or at least come to an understanding about social media and online popularity because we're trying to gain it. We're trying to get more of it. We want to become more popular, get more praise, attract more employment, so on and so forth. And that's something that we have to understand, and it's something that we need to wrap our heads around mentally, because if we don't, we won't be able to make the best of it, and we won't let it consume us, because it's something that can happen all too easily. And you can go through my library of videos. I'm sure there are plenty out there that'll cover multiple topics on the subject. For most of us, we're trying to gain popularity. For most of us, we want to make a name for ourselves. But what if that's the problem? What if every single time you get praise, whenever the opportunity for some kind of growth online presents itself, the more you gain traction publicly, the more you start to feel you're losing traction personally and creatively. This is a bigger problem than you might think. And when it comes to making a name for yourself artistically, you have to take into account that us artists in particular very often can be very introverted. We spend 95% of our times in our little bubbles listening to YouTubers, and we just keep ourselves in our little bubble and we do our thing. And as long as we're in our private little world, then we can be ourselves. We can express ourselves in the way that feel most comfortable to us without the fear of judgment, without the fear of public ridicule. This is a much bigger problem than you might think. And it's something that I feel that pretty much every one of us artists out there are going to have to come to grips with if we ever want to gain and make a name for ourselves online. And artists in particular nowadays have a little bit added pressure. There's a little bit more pressure that we have to deal with, and we have to come to grips with certain realities as professionals that I don't think artists have had to deal with so much in the past. They have, but not to this degree. The reason I'm having this conversation with you today, this very important conversation, is because I started with a new student this week, who of course I'll keep completely private, but we just met for the first time and we totally hit it off. We both have an animation background. She is a very highly skilled artist, and you could see right off the bat that she knows her stuff. She's a very solid artist, and she's the one who brought up this topic. She was the one who told me that one of the things that really scare her, that really throw her off balance, is when people start to notice her and people start to praise her. And you could tell, she didn't say it herself, but you could tell by looking at her stuff that people would gravitate towards her work really easily. Like, she'd get a lot of popularity very quickly for the kind of stuff that she produces, particularly since she's not only good at art, but she's also got quite a diversity of skill as well. But regardless, whenever she felt that people would start to like her stuff and start to recognize her stuff, she started to get scared, or she started to feel like she was losing her footing. She would lose her balance and her focus. She would start to stunt her ability to create. And one of the reasons she reached out to me in the first place was because this is something she needed to get her head around. She needed to be able to navigate around this. And this is a big topic. And from my experience and from what I've seen, there are many different reasons why you might feel this way, but slightly varying. So I want to share with you some experiences that I've had, both in my own life and what I've experienced in other people, and try to help you mentally and emotionally navigate around this obstacle and understand what it is and what might be causing your fear of getting out there, your fear of being known artistically. The first scenario is a personal one. When I was young, one of the things that I really loved and had a bit of an affinity for was music. And it wasn't until long that I started to develop this real interest in playing piano when I was around grade 1, grade 2. And I ended up taking piano lessons. And at the beginning, for the first little while, I did extremely well. My piano teacher said, you definitely have a lot of potential. And I ended up going to more advanced lessons and stuff like that, a little bit ahead of my age. And all was fine and dandy. Did a couple of piano recitals and practiced every day. Until I was a little bit older, and my mother had gone back to school to get her degree in computer science, and my grandmother would take care of us during certain days of the week. And every day I would practice a little bit. And one day my grandmother decided to kind of butt her nose into my business a little bit too much, which she did all the time. And she'd tell me, Adam, if you want to grow artistically, if you want to be good at piano, you have to practice every day. Practice morning, evening, and night. You go to school, and then you come home, you have dinner, and then you practice, and then you wake up and you practice. And she put so much pressure to grow and perform on me that it took very little time for me to start feeling like I was completely losing grip with it. It stopped being mine. It started becoming this obligation, this obligation that completely overshadowed my already existing passion. I was already somebody who practiced quite obsessively. When I love something, I apply myself to it fully. But the moment she started to force it on me, the moment it started to become an obligation, I lost ownership of it. And within a year, I dropped my piano lessons because she wouldn't relent. She didn't leave me alone about it. So I just stopped. I stopped liking it. Same thing was sports. When I was young, I loved playing soccer and hockey quite a bit. I was always very athletic as a younger kid, up until I discovered art, that is. But did great. I had a lot of fun. I did great with my soccer and hockey teams. I played intercity, all that kind of stuff that kids do. And my teammates really, really appreciated my contributions to the team. Trying not to sound like I'm boasting here, but all that kind of stuff. Until, again, it became this obligation. It was going to practices 4 days a week. It was, you have to train every day. And I started to lose ownership of it. However, despite all of these side hobbies I had that I had a passion for and ended up dropping for one reason or another, there was one thing in my life, one element in my life that nobody ever bothered me about. They just let me do it, and they left me be, probably because they believed I would never make a living doing this in the first place. It wasn't a serious endeavor, and that was, well, art. Nobody ever pushed me to draw. Nobody ever pushed me to paint. They just let me do it. It was my own little thing, and I did it on my own time. And needless to say, well, here I am, running an art mentorship with an art YouTube channel, with over 20 years of artistic experience in game and films and all that kind of fun stuff. What this taught me as an artist, and what it teaches me as a teacher as well, and as a father of artists as well, is if somebody has passion for something, leave them the hell alone. And when it comes to my own passion, when it comes to my own drive, unless I seek help or seek guidance or seek a push from somebody else, leave me alone. I need to feel like I own my passion. And this is something that I had to fight for. I had to fight for this, because if you don't defend the things that you care for, if too many people try to come in and either A, try to take ownership of your dedication by obliging you to do it or making you feel obliged to do it, or try to take it away from you and tell you that it's not something that's ever going to be worthwhile, you have to fight for it. You have to fight for the things that matter to you. Think about how many artists out there, singers, musicians, artists, dancers, that had families or friends that either pushed them too hard or tried to discourage them from doing it in the first place. And when something really matters to you, you have to defend it with your life. Because if you're the one thing in the world that you never ever want to lose is your passion and your drive to do the things that you love doing. And you have to own that space, and you have to own that energy, and you have to own that drive. Even well-meaning people, when they start to put the pressure of, you need to do it this way, you have to do it that way, you have to remind them, compassionately if you can, gently if you can, that this belongs to me. If you want to see me grow and succeed, I have to be able to forge this path myself. However, this doesn't apply to everybody. Some people really thrive in situations where somebody's giving them a kick in the ass. Some people need that. I didn't. Kicks in the ass always kicked me off the boat, not deeper into the boat. So you need to recognize yourself and recognize what it is that keeps you moving forward in your art. And if you're already doing fine on your own, then my opinion is you should probably continue to do it on your own. Now, another very big factor that can come between you and your desire to make a name for yourself online or desire to get attention for your work is your ego. And what I mean by ego is, I don't mean your vanity. I mean your sense of self, and how your sense of self and your awareness of self can be very distracting and be very damaging to how you present yourself publicly and how you react and respond to public praise and public attention, good or bad. And this is what I feel is kind of unique to us modern day artists, but something that I didn't learn or realize in painting, or at least I didn't make this association at first. I realized something, and I learned something very important in dance. Dance, which is generally more the performance thing, where you have a live audience in front of you, where you rehearse and practice for months to do a choreography in front of a live audience. And the first thing you notice when you start to perform is how terrifying it is. Hearing the DJ downstairs announcing your couple or your group or your troupe or whatever, and calling you on stage, and everybody's in costumes and makeup and ready to get on stage and do their performance. And months of practice are all coming down to this one moment when you step out on stage in front of these lights, in front of a bunch of strangers that are waiting for you to entertain them, and tasking yourself with this monumental task of making them enjoy your performance. It's very nerve-wracking. And if you ever get a chance to see the behind the scenes, the behind the stage as performers get ready for their performance, and the nerves and the anxiety and the nausea and the fainting and the fights and all of this emotion that goes on behind the scenes before you get up on that stage, particularly for people who are newer to it, it's palpable. And it's almost comical how emotional things get. But then you get up on that stage and you perform. And the first few times you perform, at least it was like this for me, and it was like this for most people that I performed with, you're going to screw something up. You're going to mess up somewhere. You're going to trip up. You're going to forget your steps. You're going to lose focus. You're going to do something terrible. You might fall flat on your ass. There's a lot of physical stuff going on. And you're going to be devastated. You may or may not completely lock up and have no idea what to do next and completely lose your place and feel like a complete ass. Or you might take a couple of seconds, get your bearings, finish off the show, smile and bow, and then get off stage and then just cry for half an hour at what a complete ass you made of yourself because it took 6 months to prepare a 3.5 minute choreography or less, and you fell on your ass despite all that practice, and you feel like an ass. You're completely humiliated. And then a couple of days later, you get the DVD or whatever, the recording, and you put it on your computer and you watch the video of this huge humiliation that's going to destroy your life and destroy your reputation. And you watch the video and you watch that moment when you screwed up and you see yourself objectively. You actually, for the first time in your life, see yourself being a public performer from the perspective of an audience member. And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't that bad. The actual mess up wasn't even noticeable, because don't forget, most of your audience, unless they were in the troupe with you or unless they're your teacher, don't know the choreography. So people might notice that you stumbled, but they don't really care. But in your head, it was monumental. In your head, your pants fell to your ankles and you fell ass up in the air and you made a complete ass of yourself in front of 500 people. But to an audience member, it's not a big deal. But you know what people do react to? The expression on your face. A mess up is amplified 100 times when you show it on your face. And the reason you're showing it on your face is because you are humiliated. People are, if you fall on your ass, nobody's going to care. But people will care about how absolutely devastated you look on your face. They're reacting to your emotion. People look to the human face for the way people feel. And if it doesn't show on your face, nobody cares. Let's fast forward 5-6 years. And I'd done multiple performances at that point. What was the major difference? Why could I get up on stage 5 years later and feel completely at home, feel completely comfortable, and perform in a way that I felt was really connecting with people versus when I first started? Well, 5 years later, when I'd get up on that stage, I wouldn't give a rat's ass what people thought about me. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about the performance. My performance was me taking my feelings and sharing them with my audience. I had to let go of my ego to perform. And when you let go of your ego, be you a singer or a dancer or performer, actor, whatever the case might be, when you let go of your ego and you focus on your performance, you focus on the emotion, you focus on the story, and that's what you're conveying to your audience on a one-to-one level, it doesn't matter if you fall on your ass. You'll just get back up and you'll keep dancing. And the reason why nobody's going to care is because it won't show on your face. You'll get back up, you'll keep telling your story as if nothing happened. There's a really good example of this. You can go online on YouTube, and there's a video of Lady Gaga, if you haven't seen her. In this video, she's stepping down off of a grand piano, onto the piano stool. And as she's doing so, the piano stool flips over, and she rolls backwards, ass up in the air, underneath the piano, with the mic in her hand, still singing. Did she get up, cry, and apologize with a beet red face? No. In fact, if you closed your eyes and watched the video and you didn't watch the actual video footage, you'd barely even know she fell. Her voice didn't waver. She got right back up and she kept singing without any sign of humiliation on her face. And as such, it didn't become a devastating moment in her life. She fell, she got back up, she kept singing. And when you see somebody like that, handle a moment like that, and when you connect that to who she is as a person in real life, she's probably one of the most selfless people selfless, not selfish, but selfless people I've ever known in my life. She's warm, she's kind. When she sings, she's completely invested in her performance, whether it be love or hate or jealousy or whatever message she's sharing with her audience. She's completely genuine and she completely dedicates herself and invests herself in what she does. And when she sings, there's no her. It's just the song. It's just the music. It's just the feeling. And you feel it as a result of it. Notice that it's that lack of self-centeredness, the lack of awareness that there's a camera on her. When she performs, her whole face and body gets into it, that you can't help but be moved by what it is that she does. It doesn't make a difference if there's millions of people watching her or if there's one person watching her. The performance is inside her soul, and that's how she presents it. Well, take that exact same message, take that exact same feeling, and realize that when you are presenting your artwork to the public, the reason why you might be losing ownership of that feeling is because you pull yourself outside of yourself and you start to, in reality, put on the hat of a performer. When you're in your own little bubble, in your own little head, you can be private, you can feel the feelings you want to feel, and use that time and space the way you want to. But the moment you present it to somebody else, now you're trying to share those feelings, share those experiences, share those images with somebody else. And when you share it with somebody else, there's a vulnerability. Are they going to feel what I want them to feel? Are they going to judge my artwork? Does it look good enough? Is it technically good enough? How did I draw my hands well enough? How about the colors? What about the composition? What about the expression? There's so many things that you're self-conscious of. And because you're conscious of the reaction and not conscious of what you're giving, the actual act of generosity, which art is, you are vulnerable to the judgment. You are vulnerable to the humiliation of not being recognized, not having your artwork seen the way you want it to. In fact, one of the most devastating things that us artists can deal with, at least if that's where your head is not being noticed. For a lot of us, we want lots of people to hit that like button. We want lots of people to write comments and say how much they love your stuff. We want lots of people to share your stuff and build names for yourself and be invited to do interviews and all that kind of cool stuff. For other people, it's the polar opposite. Because we are creators, and being creators means that for a lot of us, not all of us, we are not just presenting a drawing. We're presenting an emotional side of ourselves. We're presenting to others and we're sharing with other people a vulnerability. And when we do that, if it's not received the right way, or if it's being received at all, we are throwing ourselves to the lions, in a sense, and it feels that way. So my advice to you is, when you are sharing yourself online, when you are producing artwork for the sake of presenting it to people, be ready and willing to mess up. Be ready and willing to be vulnerable, human, and to present artwork to people and to present a side of yourself that's imperfect. It's in your desire to be a perfect artist, be a perfect presenter, to have perfect colors, to have perfect technicality that makes you vulnerable. But when you can make your vulnerability, when you can make your lack of technical superiority a part of your artistic process, when you share that vulnerability with other people, you're in fact making friends. Because what you're doing is you're making connections through your artwork on a very authentic, very human level that you own, that makes sense to you, rather than trying to outcompete them. It's no longer about you being better. It's about you being like them and the commonality that you have with them. Think about these art talks that I share with you every week. In them, am I trying to share with you that I'm better than you, that I'm smarter than you, that I know more than you do? No, I'm doing the opposite. I'm letting you know that I'm just as pathetic as you are, aren't I? I'm just as much of a loser. I have as little confidence as you have. 3 out of 4 drawings are complete flops to me, and I work with what I've got. And I've even had to share publicly that I needed the guidance, I needed the example of other artists that I admire who had that integrity and had that strength to say, I had to paint this 5 times, like Darkin or Borodante, right? I had to see their trial and error approach to their artwork to give me emotional permission to say, it's cool, Adam. Not every painting you show to the public needs to be a masterpiece. Sometimes they're going to be fantastic and they're going to be mind-blowing and they're going to be revolutionary. And sometimes they're going to be meh. And that's fine. Show people the meh as well, because if you don't, you're trying to present yourself in an unrealistic way. And I'm just like you. And that's the wavelength I want to share with you, because it's otherwise devastatingly difficult and stressful. And I lose ownership of my artwork and of my process. And I feel like I lose myself creatively when I'm always trying to be perfect all the time, because I just can't. So, my friend, if you are sitting there in your own little quiet, lonely place, drawing, dreaming one day of being, quote, good enough to show your artwork to the public, my advice to you today is, it's the fact that your artwork is not, quote, perfect, that makes it perfect for sharing. Because people don't just want to see your perfect art. People want to experience you. And that is far more moving and meaningful to other people than just witnessing the best. All right? So with that said, hopefully I've shared a little bit of insight with you today. Hopefully I've helped to enlighten you. And of course, I love you all with all my heart, and happy painting. Take care.